The big caveat that I think a lot of people misunderstand with AI that I'd love to shed some light on is we're not here to take the work away from anybody. We're here to make it easy to review.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I'm excited to have on this week Karan Khanna, who he's the founder and product lead for Listikit. It's an AI software that's supposed to help real estate agents do their job better. A lot with AI assistance, keeping every deal on track and making people more productive. I guess hopefully it's to spend, less time with the paperwork, more time with the people. And with that, Karan, thank you very much for coming on the podcast this week.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I previewed you, it's a challenge for you to come on because I'm not saying that I'm old school because I certainly understand technology, but why I wanted to have you on was because it's important on how do you bring in new technology to enhance the purchase, not take away from the purchase, right?
Right.
So with that, can you explain a little bit what made you, what's your background? How, you founded it, you created it, you're obviously in charge of, a lot of the
Right.
planning. So what's some of the background, and then talk to me about how your AI assistant, AI software platform can help people in the real estate world.
Yeah, so a bit about me. I'm Karan. I am the product lead and founder of Listikit AI. I worked and still do work with the parent company that owns Listikit called Harmony Venture Labs. That's kind of where I started my professional career as a product manager. That just means my bread and butter is finding interesting problems to solve and then applying new and emerging technology to uniquely solve those problems in ways that may not have been thought of before. One of our portfolio companies at Harmony Venture Labs was Listikit, which was kind of handed to me to revitalize and figure out how can we actually solve this problem that plagues every back office in a real estate team. And seeing how far AI had been advancing about a year ago itself, we decided we want to revolutionize and democratize the home buying process so that information is secure, accessible, and moves through the funnel of work that needs to be done without any hiccups so that agents, teams, TCs can close more deals confidently and not worry about mistakes being made just from moving information from system to system. So that's kind of the high level mindset that I came in with to solve Listikit. I'm not from real estate, but I'm really passionate about solving problems. So I've just leveraged the expertise that our users have into where the company and the product is going. And I stand proudly on that mountain that I may not be the best at real estate, but I have the best users who tell us kind of where we need to go professionally. And then I have the best team to kind of take those professional real estate insights and build software solutions behind them. For Listikit specific, oh, go
One thing
ahead.
I do want to chime in and saying, creating systems and platforms, you don't need to be the expert in what that is, right? You need to be
Right.
like you have. It's very important that you see what's the problem and how do I use
Mhm.
technology, right? Because the people in real estate don't
Yeah.
understand what technology can do to help them. So it's more like you understand what's someone's workflow, and then how
Mhm.
do I create? How do I automate something to make it where it can be better? So one thing that I said is being secure is something that's important, right? And also you said something that made me think a little bit is how to make it correct, right? To make sure that they're not problems. Because I guess
Correct.
if there's user error where an
Mhm.
agent's constantly or there are steps that can be done improperly if you can make
Yeah.
something. See, I sometimes would think that if I'm not doing it and I'm automating something, it could be a problem that I don't know of and it could be worse. So I think
Right.
that's something
Yeah.
that would be something that secures it, right? For a broker or a team lead that says, no, I kind of like this because I know that it can't be done improperly, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
okay, continue.
Yeah. I mean, everything you said is kind of exactly what I was going to talk about next was we, one, are trying to kind of disrupt or revolutionize. I think the best word is democratize the back office process. An agent who doesn't have a TC shouldn't be at a disadvantage to a team full of TCs, but also that team full of TCs should be on an even playing field where information is easily accessible and the work can get done easily. And that kind of thread of thinking is kind of where Listikit was born, where now we have real estate teams, real estate agents, transaction coordinators, all using Ava, our AI assistant, to make their workflows smoother. And the big caveat that I think a lot of people misunderstand with AI that I'd love to shed some light on is we're not here to take the work away from anybody. We're here to make it easy to review. So a lot of people, the best example we have is our contract reader. People think, and even our own users will say, Ava reads the contract for me and does that work for me, which is true. But all of that work that she's doing boils down to a very simple review process that a human still needs to review. We're not taking away the human judgment there. We're using AI to simplify the workflows so that you, as the end user, can review the work a lot easier and move on with your day in 5 minutes instead of taking 30 minutes to an hour to read a whole contract, calculate all those dates that you've done time and time again, to now just in a couple minutes, Ava's done all of that grunt work and you're just reviewing it. All of our design principles, everything that we build, the end state is not that the thing is done. It's now ready for the human to review easily. I will say from all the agents I've spoken to, that is quite atypical to see such a high volume without any back office help. So kudos to you on that. What we charge is $15 a transaction at the minimum, or at the max. So you buy transaction credits. When you put your file in and Ava starts working on it and the details look good, you hit open and that's when the credit gets taken. And then for that $15, you can use Ava unlimited to get that deal closed. Whether it's reading your inbox, building your timeline, drafting and sending email communications, pulling in documents, filing them, compliance checking for missing signatures, even now filling out your blank forms and preparing amendments for you. And I think in the next couple of days, even preparing for e-signature and sending it out, all of that will be kind of baked in with that credit. The e-signature piece may be something we do additional, but everything else that I mentioned would be baked into that experience for $15. And then what's cool is we don't have any monthly fees. We don't have any team seats, none of that. So every agent on a team could just buy their credits and use Listikit when they need it. So in Christmas, when you take time off, you're not paying for an assistant that you're not using. You're only using Ava as your deals come in. And when you buy these credits in bulk, we actually discount them all the way up to 27% off. So buying in bulk actually brings it down to about $11 a deal to cover you throughout the entire transaction.
So what I would say though is every state and location is different. So
Yeah,
so that's also because I certainly know that there are states that have lawyers and states that don't
yeah,
have lawyers. So my part of New York and Connecticut uses lawyers. So like I'm not part of why I can do what I do is because I'm not reading contracts, right? So it's which I actually love because I'm not a
yes,
lawyer. I don't want to be
right.
doing contracts, right? So,
Yeah,
clearly I do prep listing agreements, which are
yeah,
contracts. And in Connecticut, in some of our transactions, your offer is a contract, right? You draft the contract and you use the standard contract and you fill it in for your offer. But what's interesting to me is I don't think I want to use AI for my offers because it's based off of what my offer is that I know. So sometimes I feel like I don't need any assistant because by the
right.
time I tell them what it needs to be, I just could have done it, right? Like
Got it.
even for me doing a memo, it's not that hard to take an existing memo
Right.
and edit it, right? And just, you put in your buyer's names,
Yeah,
the lawyer's names, who's the lawyer, what's their information.
right.
So I think, and being my part of New York and Connecticut, I think I'm able to do it. That not to say that other people don't have transaction coordinators, but again,
Yeah,
I like to and then so that's one thing. And then I guess the other issue is scaling for the sake of scaling, right? So I I know your point is saying, well, if I ran out of time and I wasn't able to take listings or I wasn't able to put offers in because I ran out of time in the day, then I would look for something that would help me do things faster. But 55 transactions a lot. And there's another point of this is that it depends on what market you're in, right? Because if your average price on a transaction is, let's say, 200,000, you have to do many more than if your average transaction 700,000, right?
Yeah.
So then you need to get to scale just to try to make the amount of money that
Correct.
that might be in your plan. So I clearly understand that everyone's different and really depends on your business plan. But I
Yeah.
do like the idea of,
Right.
an AI assistant looking at stuff. So give me an example of, you know, how would it keep things like, see, New York, my area is a little different because, like, well, the appraisal dates are less strict, at least in New York and Connecticut a little bit, but like ultimately there
Yeah.
are lenders, right? So the lender does that. So
Right.
yes, I need to know, is that happening in the time period, but I don't know how, like, using an AI assistant or any assistant helps really get that along. If I'm the listing agent, I'm not
Right.
responsible for it. If I'm the buyer's agent, yes, I have to stay
Right.
on top of my lender to say, okay, we've been in contract for
Right.
7 days. Did they pay their money for and to move things along? So,
Right.
bring me
Yeah.
through a little bit of the process of how it
Yeah.
helped an agent.
For sure. So the the points you made stand true to this day about how AI can work. But I think there's a mental model that I'd like to kind of pressure test a bit. When we were first using AI to build Listikit, we were saying things like, whether it was an engineer saying, it's easier for me to go and fix a line of code than for me to tell the AI, wait for it to go fix that line of code. Or if I have a design and I'm trying to change maybe, like the title of the design, I have to go in and either type the new title myself or tell the AI, wait for it to do it, and then go ahead and do it. One-shot tasks is a very subjective game of who can do it faster, right? Like for you, you said it, for example, filling out that offer. Sometimes it's just faster for you to go in and knock all those details out because you have them fresh in your mind over AI, blah, 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 like fill these offers, take these details and put it into an offer. But the minute you move into a systemic framework of how can I build a system that carries my deal end to end, that's where AI can have multitudes of value over doing things manually yourself. Now, I imagine if we were to zoom out and say, before you fill out an offer, you typically get on the phone with the buyer and map out those details with them over the phone or in person, right? You have a back and forth negotiation or a conversation that kind of irons out, okay, this is the offer we're putting together. What if that conversation was transcribed by your AI? So all that information was already collected as the conversation is happening, stored in a system that then could fill out that offer for you, put it into your signing platform, map out the fields that need to be signed, and get ready to get sent to everybody who needs to sign it all automatically. That's now getting into a bigger time save. And that's just now one workflow out of all the different workflows you have. A big one that saves time for our agents and our transaction teams is a document comes into my inbox. I need to download it, open it, check each page for signatures. And if it's signed, I put it into my compliance platform. If it's not signed, I need to go and map out what's not signed again and then return it back to the person who sent it to me for more signature. Everything I just mentioned sounds pretty arbitrary, but when you're doing that across deals, you're now managing multiple documents, their state of signature, and different signing platforms to make sure everything gets signed. But with Ava, with one system, she's now reading her inbox, pulling it in, filing it into the right transaction, checking its signature status, and preparing it for signature. So all you have to do is, hey Daniel, I found this earnest money in your inbox. I checked if it's signed or not, but there's some issues, so I'm preparing it for signature. Would you like to go? Those kind of workflows incrementally over time are now saving a lot of time for you to do one of two things or two different things, one of which you already mentioned, which is scaling your business. Should we be scaling more or should we not? That's a good question. If you're happy at the volume you're doing, there's a chance you want time back. Some of our TCs have, been very proud of like, I've been able to go on vacation finally after so long because I used to be buried in paperwork. And same for our agents. So I look at it as either take your time back and then grow your business more, or go out and live the rest of your life. Some of our agents have mentioned they've started secondary businesses like owning Airbnbs. diversifying their time because they're not spending so much time buried in mundane routine workflows that could be done by an AI now. So that's kind of the thinking that we're trying to push out to anybody who comes across Listikit is don't look at it to replace one or two things. Look at the workflows that it could compress for you so you get more time doing more critical things like signing that new lead or closing that deal finally at the end. Does that make sense?
It does. I also my again, I'm only living in my world, right? So
Yeah,
you're living in more worlds because you're trying to work on something nationally, right? And maybe
yeah,
internationally. But
right.
the workflow that you're describing is not really what it is in Metro New York, in my part of Metro New York, right? I'm
Mm,
north of the city and connect. None of those things are actually
yeah.
needed, right? Where that workflow of getting things signed, it's one time, it's not something that is necessarily done in our market.
Yeah, so it does depend from state to state. Actually, I also want to speak to kind of what you had mentioned before about the lawyers. So that's funny that you're right. In legal or in attorney review states, a lot of the paperwork heaviness lands on the attorney's head, and they got to do the contract review and the timeline management to quite an extent before we fully go under. We also have attorneys using us to do that contract review and manage the transactions kind of end to end so that the agents like yourself or the brokers like yourself can spend more time on the road. So the fun part about Ava is we aren't just here to serve the agent who right now already has a lot of their work being taken off their plate by a lawyer or a TC in escrow states. In that case, have the attorney use us, which is kind of what we do right now. We are
Although
going and trying to supercharge the attorney or the TC who's right now kind of buried in the paperwork. And sometimes it's that agent doing it for themselves to kind of supercharge and allow them to expand their business and do more instead of getting stuck in those repetitive workflows that can be automated by an AI now.
well, see, that's where I think it's much more appropriate is in
Yeah.
where the lawyers that I work with, everything that you've just said, because ultimately they're using a standard contract and that contract doesn't really change much. They've only add a few things in. So instead of
Yeah.
having to, they're really cutting and pasting, right? They're cutting and pasting the
Mhm.
standard contract. So technically, I would think that is able to be automated. And then you just
Correct.
throw in the other things that are important to this deal. So and lawyers have deadlines of mortgage contingencies, when the closings are. So it's interesting is none of that really, while I do try to assist in those things, that's not my responsibility in my world, which
Mhm.
is why I don't have a transaction coordinator, right? Because if I
Right.
put in an offer, if the offer gets accepted, I now need to schedule an inspection. So I talk to the inspectors, I schedule the inspection, and then memos get sent, contracts, and then I don't do the contracts, right? The lawyers are doing the
Yeah.
contracts.
Oh,
It gets signed, and then I'm told we're in contract, although I actually am a little bit more hands on, but basically it's told
right.
that it's in contract. And then I know that I need to, make sure that I'm following up with the lender, that I don't actually have to do that, but I do to make sure that the lender has the contract and that we're moving forward. And, when contract dates are and walkthroughs and,
Yeah.
you know, I'm able to cobble together through,
Yeah.
using like my platform is Loop,
Yeah.
and also Outlook or Google, my Gmail
Right.
calendar, where I'm able to do that, right? That's how I schedule all my podcasts, right? It goes through
Yeah.
Calendarly, it's in my
Right.
thing, and I pull up my phone and I see,
Yeah.
oh, I have three today. Okay, great. I'm gonna,
Right.
and so I can always make notes to myself. So I certainly I view certainly the AI assistant is going probably takes away the place of the transaction coordinator because because that's really what it's trying to do is organize. But you know you've never said anything that any of the things that are done take away from an agent talking to clients. And
Oh, no, not at all. No,
but
no.
but
Yeah.
but in other podcasts that I run, people are like
Uh-huh.
AI take over the world, and it means
I
that
see that.
like
Yeah.
I because like I shudder to think when someone's like, oh, a lead comes in and my bot's going to start. It's like my bot's talking to your bot. No people are talking. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm thinking like a new lead comes in, which is a person. I want to
Yes.
talk to the person or start
Right.
something,
Mhm.
not have my bot talks to your bot type of thing. So everything that you've said to me is really just an
Yeah.
organization
Right.
reviewing, and I like the idea that if it compresses the information, so then I could then look at it, right? I don't need to look at a contract. So, but
Yeah.
certainly something that makes a lot of sense, and so clearly AI and like listen, if robots and AI were could do some of those things, then my bot would meet people at the house. With the door would be automatically
Yeah.
opened, and then they would walk through the house, and we wouldn't need to do anything. So clearly,
Yeah. Our perspective on it is we have our three personas. Our first one is our teams. We want our teams to be supercharged in the aspect of the routine work can be handled by Ava. So the transaction coordinator team is always available for the agents and not buried in some mundane task. And the agents are out there selling, they're not sitting in the office doing the paperwork. For that solo agent, that's our second persona. Same deal, except if they can't afford a TC, Ava's carrying some of their paperwork so that they're on the road. We, in fact, have an Ava SMS feature where you can put all your contracts into Listikit and then SMS Ava on the go. So you still stay on the road selling and not in your back office. So our whole motive is grow your business by letting the people who are supposed to focus on the things that they're supposed to do actually focus on them and eliminate that repetitive work that can be now handled by an AI.
it also is like I'm kind of like in a well, maybe it's not in a good way, but more anal in deadlines and scheduling. So I'm because I'm good at it or because I can't help but doing that, right? Like I'm very organized and so I do that myself. But not everyone's like that, right? And so if you're not like that, this is a tool to use to
Right.
help you
Keep you on
as a
track.
crutch, prop yourself up to ensure that you're not letting things fall through the cracks. And also, certainly people want to be able to know that they have that backup helping them, ensuring that, deadlines are being made. Because it obviously, especially in certain states, if you miss deadlines, bad things can happen. So it's certainly good to you.
Yeah.
And the price that you said is nothing, right? It's absolutely nothing as opposed to having a person, right? Like a transaction coordinator that might make 60 to 75,000, maybe have medical benefit, it's like it's a lot. And then the other problem with having a person is that or who's an employee as opposed to a independent contractor that might work for multiple people. Hey, if you're working for multiple people, they might not always be available, and at
Right.
least the good news is Ava is always available. Ava doesn't take holidays.
Nope, she does not.
So until she gets in the union, the
Well,
AI
until
bot
we, yeah,
union,
until
and
we
then
unionize her.
when you
Yeah,
unionize her, then that's going to be a little different. But I figured
yeah,
Ava should work. If I work every day, Ava should work every
yeah,
day too.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah,
and I think so. You also mentioned about programming. Well, I think obviously AI in the programming world makes a ton of sense because
right.
because looking at code and coming up with better code, faster code, fixing code that's broken does seem like a computer thing where, listen, as a computer programmer, clearly we need less of them, right? Because you're not needing as much of the data entry beginner programming, but you need more where you need the programmers or the big picture thinkers to tell AI what to do. I mean, I guess there's going to be a point that we won't need you because AI will tell AI what to do and how to fix itself. But I don't think we're there
Right.
yet with AI. But at the end of the day, people, you know, people have to in our world, right? People work with people. And so clearly you are doing things that you can to make things better, to improve and to make people's jobs better and also to communicate better with their clients. So that's never going to go, that shouldn't go away, right? That
Right.
we're I mean, think about all the improvement where back in the day, and I'm talking maybe 35 years ago, maybe even less, before, I've only been in real estate 10 years, so it's way before me. But you would have to, if a buyer would have to, there would be ads in newspapers, right? Print newspapers. That would be what's the open houses or what's available. There was no internet. You would go into a brick and mortar store, right, to meet somebody. You would probably walk in, people would have to sit there, they meet with you, and then they would start talking to you, and then pull the keys out of like the binder, and then show you, and you
Yeah.
would only really show houses in that town, right? Because that's the like what we and now obviously with technology and the internet, everybody sees the houses. They've gone 3D versions, they've seen videos, they see the house, they can find the taxes, all that. Is it a flood zone, not a flood zone? All that. It's made it much easier it's actually made a much more sophisticated buyer, and a buyer
Yeah.
now they're not just focused on one town. Rarely,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because now you can learn about other towns that are similar, and especially in a market where it's a seller's market, buyers have to be there's always a give and take, right? If you
Right.
don't have all the money in the world, then something has to give. Well, that's my first
Right.
choice, but these two other towns or three other towns also would be okay for me. So, so those are all things that, technology has allowed, everyone to be better consumers and more education, and doesn't make our job go away. It just means that our jobs changed, and I guess we can do more transactions now because it's a little bit of a faster pace than what it used to be.
Perfectly said. Exactly. I think the question of, oh my God, AI is taking my job versus the way I look at it is 10 years ago, if we offered you anybody an assistant for pennies to do a full-time job 24/7 to help you, you would absolutely take that opportunity. And that's what we're providing you. We're providing you a full-time assistant that knows your workflows, that can augment your work so you can do a better job and do more of it at a fraction of the cost. And I think once that mindset kind of changes, the reception to AI and the way you adopt it is a very different story.
I agree. I mean, I don't have the assistance also because I want to be the one talking to my clients, right? And then you can also
Yeah.
say, how much is enough? How much is too much, right? How many deals do I need to do? How much money do I need to make, right? If I want to make more money, I guess I can go up the scale on higher price houses. But at some point, and again, I run a brokerage with no employees, zero. Because once I have one employee,
Yeah.
everything changes, right? The laws
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
So it's more entrepreneurial, quick on your feet. The other thing
Mhm.
I guess is good is the my fixed costs are much lower, right? Because that's always the problem is
Right.
that like I don't know what I'm going to do this year. Crazy for the last 10 years, every year I've done more that year than I did the year before. And every year I keep saying that's going to end. It's going to end. And people like I don't do
Yeah.
any budget, and I do no budgeting. No, none. Because you know what? I don't
Yeah.
know when someone's going to die, when they're going to just get transferred or decide to like those
Right.
are life events that just happen. And
Yeah.
I've kind of built it where try to have my phone ring, and when my phone rings I'll help you, but me planning that you were going to
Yeah.
call me doesn't really make you call me.
Right.
But there are things that you can do, right? Like have customer events, do I actually do use AI. So this is where I invest my money, not in a person to help me, but in AI to attract new business. And so, my view is AI is really just Google on steroids. So I work more on the marketing via AI of writing articles that get published in different journals, right? Because that will
Right.
help my links. Another crazy thing I did is I wrote a book, The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker, last year. So it's on Amazon if you're interested, $10 on Amazon.
Okay. That's
But it's
cool.
about stories of people. Like it's not about how to sell a house, it's about the
Right.
adventures of me and other people. And then doing a podcast, I think this is like my 80th podcast, right? So I've committed to always doing this and talking to people, which I love because if this allows me to talk to you and allows us to communicate and share ideas and meet new people. And actually the AI company that I'm working with to promote AI activity was somebody that I interviewed. I'm like, wow, that's really good. So you do have a chance that if I ever go the AI assistant route, that you're going to be the person
Yeah,
that I call. But
absolutely. Come on over. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think you go ahead.
no, you go.
I was just saying that I think it is cool to see how you're using AI to attract business. That's a question we have too on our end is like our agents are using us to close deals, but what's the next step? How can we get you more business? So that's cool to see you're using it that way. I
Well,
think,
and the reason being is that when I ask my new clients, how did you hear of me? They're like, I asked ChatGPT, I
there we
asked
go.
Claude. When they go
Yeah.
into their phone, right? They're like, who's the best agent, in
Yes.
Westchester? And my name's coming up. And it's interesting because I've told people that story and they're like, oh, that's BS, whatever. And then what do? They go and they do it in front of me and you see, yeah, I'm top, whatever. And it's not the best of the best. That's not actually what AI gets. It's through reviews on Zillow and Google and writing stories. And even sometimes it was funny because my brother once did it and I didn't come up. And he goes, why isn't Daniel Berger on your list? He goes, well, Daniel Berger's a really good agent. Here's all the things that are good about him. He goes, because you can't know exactly. It's AI said this. You can't exactly know what the best is. He's not the one that does the most volume, but best is a different scenario. So
Right.
so I figured, and people are like, well, why would you invest, $600 a month in doing this if you're already coming up? And I go, because I want my name always to be there, right? I
Yeah.
want to do the things because so lead generation, I feel in the real estate world is much more valuable than having someone help me draft a memo or something like that. And I don't mind doing them. And it does get me more involved in knowing exactly what my offers are and things like that, and even putting in an offer. I customize mine. I might say something about the people. I might say, you can call the lender, call the attorney. We're ready to. So, and again, it's not at 55. I mean, how much more do you need to do? 55 transactions, one over $1 million of GCI, it's like, I'm able to do the job. So at some point, people have to understand. My view, I always say, scale for the sake of. You don't necessarily scale just to scale, but I do find that your AI system can help, can also be orderly, can be tracking, and then also clearly if it's a brokerage or a team and a team wants to provide that service so that, because you do want to sell, right? So really all things that you can do, if you're using paperwork as an excuse not to sell, and for $15 of transactions, anyone would be foolish not to use your company because that's not the excuse, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to $10,000 or $75,000, right?
Right.
That's more expensive, and yours is one off, so that you try and you get embedded. So I applaud you and your company for trying to look at the workflow and trying to make it easier. That's called technology, and that's progress. And our country's been great at progress and technology for hundreds of years, right? And so
Yeah.
there's no different here. You're just taking, and those they're words that scare people, right? AI and you
Yeah.
know all that other stuff. People don't know what it actually means. It really just means helping people buy and sell houses more
Right.
productively,
Mhm.
organized, that you're able to do that. So I think that's good. What else? What do you also see the future in your business and or real estate that, you have a 3 month, 6 month, 1 year, 5 year vision? Where do you see things are going?
So for Listikit specifically, we want to kind of move into brokerages so that the biggest strength we've seen with Ava is the central source of truth. I just spoke to a team at Keller Williams, and they mentioned that their agents are using a different CRM, they're using a different transaction management tool, they're using a different compliance tool, and then the broker is looking at an Excel spreadsheet mixed with an accounting software. Nobody has the single source of truth for where we are as a team. And if you scale that down even to an agent who's using a CRM, their inbox, their calendar, their text messages, and their accounting software, everything is so scattered and mistakes happen when information needs to move from one platform to another. It's inevitable when you're at scale. So we want to see if we can plug Ava into your tools in such a way that the minute they become a lead, Ava and your team have visibility into where they're going all the way to close. And as we collect data that helps kind of map out that journey, we can start doing predictive insights to say this buyer hasn't picked up your last two phone calls. There's an X% chance that they're not going to convert if you do not call them for a third time tomorrow. Go down the line to the inspection is coming up in 2 days. If only X happens today, will we be able to, get Y done? Start doing some predictive analysis to preempt deals from falling through so your close rate goes up and you're actually nurturing your lead with a predictive system from start to finish to make the deal process a lot smoother. We want to refine these deal processes so deals aren't falling through, mistakes aren't being made, and agents and teams are getting more time to spend time and speak with their clients, and brokers are being able to focus more on higher level compliance relationships instead of being stuck in the weeds of did we collect that document on time or not. So right now we do transaction to close. We also help with listings, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done on financial reporting and payment processing. And on the agent side, there's a lot of help that we can provide on the CRM, the client communication, to empower the agent to still be in person, just with all the support that they need so that in-person experience is perfect every single time. So that's kind of the two directions we're kind of expanding in with Listikit.
Great. Well, to me, that certainly makes sense to me. Everything that you're saying is just augmenting the experience, and you don't always hear that. So it's not
Yeah,
nothing's taking over. It's just making things easier, more organized.
right.
So and you can call me the dinosaur, right? Because I'm the dinosaur with no back end, with no transaction coordinator. CRM, I don't really have a CRM. I just really store stuff in the cloud.
Yeah.
It's in my head. So,
I prefer to call you the master at what you do, not the
uh,
dinosaur.
but what I would say is I've done that because of the market that I'm in. All right. And
Right,
so I do think that there are other markets that would force me to be different. Right. I
right,
just happen to be me because I'm like you in the sense I'm an engineer. I'm engineering my business that makes
right,
sense for me. But I certainly know that markets are different. That's also why I love having you on, because people who can, listen to this and say, you know what, I'm in Georgia, I'm in California, that all would help me,
right.
but that's really great. Let everyone know how can they contact you and your company.
Yeah, you can check out Listikit at listikit.com. You have a link to sign up there. Your first transaction is completely free, so you can put in a contract and try it out if you want. If you want to talk to me personally, one-on-one, on listikit.com, there's an option to book a demo. That's how you can get a one-on-one demo call with me, and I can show you the product for your needs. And lastly, if you have any questions, this is the part where we don't use the AI, email us at hello@listikit.com. I will personally respond to your emails and answer any questions you have.
Well, thank you very much. And you've been great. You're refreshing, and not calling me a dinosaur is a bonus. You've come into an industry that is not one that was your background, but you're really an engineer, and engineers really should, a proper engineer should be able to do that in any, learn the business. And then how can I use technology and how can I make your job better through automation? And that is not a skill that I have. Thus, since I'm not smart enough to do that, I need to be in real estate, and hopefully I can make it until a few more years. But I'm trying my best. But I appreciate everything that you're doing. What is pretty amazing is how many other companies are out there trying to, they see something in real estate because a lot of effort is put into real estate to
Right.
make it to automate it, but also make things more concise, productive, and move it into a technological age. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. I look forward to having it be on as a podcast, and people can learn
Yeah.
more about Listed Kit and yourself. So thank you very much for coming on. And for everyone, it's the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. It's Daniel Berger. Thank you very much for listening in this week. If today's stories opened your eyes, wait till you see what's next. Hit the video on screen to join the next adventure with Daniel Berger.